Getting smashed on a Tuesday morning. Who does that? I remember thinking to myself when I first started working in emergency, people will rock up in the middle of the week, a morning, and they're absolutely hammered. So much so that they have to rock up to emergency because they're like unconscious. Ambulance brings them in. They are completely drugged up to the bone, or they're completely pissed. And it's like 11 in the morning. It's 11 on a Tuesday and you're absolutely smashed. I remember thinking to myself, like, who does that? And then you kind of connect the dots. It's like, okay, if they're doing that on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday, I know what they're not doing. What they're not doing is achieving anything in life if they're completely drunk or drugged up on a freaking 10 o'clock Friday morning or Thursday morning. I used to kind of, have these thoughts in my head, like, what sort of individual does that? What sort of dark place do you have to be in that situation? Yeah, we all have weekends, long weekends and all this sort of stuff, and you drink and all that kind of stuff, but some of these people are rocking up to emergency, unconscious. We're sending them to ICU with a tube down their throat, breathing for them because they're so drugged up or they're so drunk. It's like, it's hard to comprehend a situation like that where you are in such a dark place that you were doing this. For the first part of my career, I used to think to myself, like, what a loser. What a loser that person is. And then you started getting a bit more of a mature look and you kind of start to wonder, what's led this person to do that? Okay, there's some people who just have a bit of fun and whatever and do it and overdo it kind of thing. But then there are people who are really, really sad about their life, who are really using these substances as an escape from their reality. Those types of thoughts are very sad, are very, very depressing. Most of my time, I think about how to improve my life, how to get better at the deadlift, at the squat, how to get better at freaking mowing the lawn, man. Thinking about always improvement in every area of my life. Thinking about what's best for my kids, what's best for the family, that kind of stuff. And then there is a person rocking up to emergency unconscious because they got drugged up too much. I don't know, God knows for how many points of meth they used. They're absolutely gone. The other day, somebody rocked up because they overdid GHB. GHB, I don't even know what it stands for, to be honest with you, but the street name is fantasy. That's one drug I've never understood. So these people rock up and they go from like fully awake, so high, running around thinking they're God knows what. I've seen a full-grown man on his all fours in the bed with the full security team around, everyone's around him, and he's barking like a dog on the Borussia in emergency, barking like a dog. So he's tripping and he thinks he's a dog, and the very next 5 minutes is they're unconscious with jaw thrusting him and doing like these movements to support his airway. So much so, some of these people get intubated, which means a breathing tube down their throat, they get paralyzed, and they get breathing tube down their throat, and they spend the night in ICU. These people take this fantasy to trip, but the drug goes up and down. It's really weird. Like, I don't know how many people get the right dose for themselves so they can have a nice freaking experience, not freaking out being chased down the street by the freaking devil. That's one drug I don't understand. I don't understand any of this stuff because all these substances take you away from getting better at you. They take you away from becoming the best version of yourself. So it's like a completely foreign realm for my thinking to be like, oh yeah, let me just crank open this freaking bottle of vodka and empty it before midday. It's like what? Like, if you do that, you're not doing anything for the rest of the week, man. Like, talk about a freaking hangover, man. Like, it's a Tuesday, so you're not going to work, you're not doing anything. Who knows? People might be on holidays or whatever, but it's freaking midday, man. Like, what's going on in the morning? I'll tell you what's going on. Nothing is going on. It's a dark, dark life they're leading. That is kind of what the summer is after all these years of nursing, after all this time of resuscitating these people and taking them up to ICU and all this stuff. And I always kind of walk back from ICU after the job is done, and you're kind of walking back to ED and you think to yourself, Jesus Christ, what was that last 2 hours? Like, who is this person? A lot of time, man, like, I kind of feel for the people in the field, like the ambulance officers, the fire fire guys, police officers, they see the scene, you know what I mean? They see the car crash, they see the place where they've taken this person from. A lot of these people that front up to ED, they're always in my home, right? In my home setting. The ED, it's very clinical, it's very clean, it's very professional. But when you see people where they're coming from, a lot of the times, man, like Ambos have brought people in, it's like, this is one of 20 people that are absolutely smashed in this house that we went to. This person stopped breathing because there was a freaking heroin party. Somebody called because this person's unconscious, not responding. And so, they've picked him up and they're like, oh, we might be called back because there's a few more kind of teetering on the edge of, overdone it. And it's like, oh my Lord, imagine a whole friend group, a whole circle of people there to get absolutely smashed on drugs. So the whole environment is basically not productive. No one's interested in improving themselves. They're all interested in escaping their reality because their reality is so bad. It's misery. And I'll wake up on a Wednesday morning, go to the gym and go into the freaking do rack pulls, snap my spine. Misery of a session today. That's how I'm spending my Wednesday morning. And while I'm doing this and like putting up with the freaking pump in my lower back and all that stuff, I'm thinking to myself, there is somebody out there right now injecting heroin, injecting meth, drinking fantasy. It's an unreal thing. Obviously, there's 7 billion people on the planet. I've always said this, and I say it all the time to people around me. What we choose to do with our life on this planet is just one way of doing it. It's not right or wrong or whatever. There's other forms of life. Some people don't want to live to 80. Some people want to live to 35 and then die. Or I don't know what people are thinking when they're doing heroin like this. And everyone's freaking drugged up. Like, I don't even know what sort of setup is it? If 20 people are sitting around in the lounge room and everyone's doing heroin, surely somebody has to be freaking sober to call an ambulance if somebody overdoes it. Like, it's hard for me to understand all that. But the whole realm of this is very hard for me because, like I said, like I'm always thinking about how to improve 1 freaking gram on that deadlift. It's like the last thing I want to do is drink so much, take drugs so much that I'm not only not going forward, but I'm going backwards. I can't even rock up to my work, man. It's unreal. It's unreal, but life is all about options and choices, and you make your choices and you try not to look back, or you look back and you analyze what you've done wrong and what you haven't. But that was my Wednesday morning. I went to the gym today and I did a whole bunch of rack pulls, and while I was thinking about the freaking mean lower back pump that I had this morning, I was thinking about some of the other fellow humans that are roaming this planet right now looking for a fix. And yeah, man, it's extraordinary. Like, it was yesterday that we sent this 30-something-year-old lady to ICU because she did too much meth, unconscious. If this person was left to be, I don't know who called the ambulance, I don't know how it happened, but she would have passed away. And it's just like, it's unreal. A lot of you guys always say to me, Ivana, how do you come up with all these thoughts? How do you come up with all this stuff that you think about, like this idea of stoicism, which you guys introduced me to? I mean, I wasn't familiar with stoicism at all or anything like that. It was just, that's the environment I live in, man. Like, when you're in the research room resuscitating a 30-something-year-old because of their doing their drugs, it makes you kind of sit back and be like, Jesus Christ, man. Like, we have a saying in ED, the best thing about our work is that you go home and you feel like you're all right. You're freaking all right. You're doing this life thing pretty good, man. Because our work exposes us to such a contrast of people, man. I spent my Tuesday morning working 12 hours in ED. This person woke up and got unconscious and spent the rest of their day in ICU. It's like, my life is brilliant compared to that life, because that life looks very dark and no light at all. And then you wonder the upbringing, you wonder the situation, the possible abuse that there were. Like, it's just so dark, man. So dark. It's if it wasn't for this type of work, this sort of stuff wouldn't cross my mind. And I think a lot of you guys that are not in healthcare, not in these types of situations for work, you wouldn't think about this stuff unless you watch the documentary or turn on the news or something. And even that is very external to you in a way. Like, it's not, you're not in the moment. Like, you flick on the news and you see ISIS going crazy, Syria, like, you know, all this stuff that was happening a few years ago, and now it's Ukraine and all this stuff. And you think to yourself, wow, that's really sad. And then you turn the TV off and off you go. And you flick on Netflix and you know. But when you're in a research room, you're actually seeing this stuff. Like, you're there. It's a weird feeling, man, like, you know, resuscitating a 30-year-old. Like, you know, I've kind of gotten used to it after all these years of nursing. But, you know, I'll often catch myself, you know, looking at the responses of my friends or my family who are not in this circle. And they look at me like they're absolute shock. And I'm like, well, there's nothing shocking about this. That's my normal work exposure. But for people to hear me say that we resuscitated a 30-year-old, it's like, whoa, man. Like, most people around me are starting a family, thinking about starting a family, looking to buy a house, to renovate the house, to do like all these positive things, trying to, like, you know, juggle all this stuff in life. Man, we've got no time to freaking buy drugs, man. What do you mean drugs, man? The houses are so freaking expensive nowadays. You want me to blow $1,000 on drugs? Are you kidding me, man? Like, I'm trying to move forward, not backwards, man. I'm trying to get better in the deadlift. I don't want to go and, like, snap my spine on purpose. It's like, what would lead you to purposefully go and snap your spine in the gym? What, like, that means that you don't really want to be in the gym if you are actively seeking to injure yourself. That's what they are doing with these drugs. They're actively seeking to injure themselves so they remove themselves from that environment, which is the gym, or which is the life. I sometimes drive back from home from these shifts and I'm like, you know, it's such a time warp. Like 12 hours in ED, it feels like, you know, such a short time, man. Like, it just goes by so quickly. You know, and oftentimes, like, you know, it depends what I'm doing and what I'm, you know, involved in at work. Sometimes I don't think about training at all. And, you know, yesterday I'm driving back and I'm thinking about the lady that we sent to ICU and whatnot. And you think to yourself, damn, you know, I've spent 12 hours not thinking about training because I was so busy or whatever. But imagine you're always on drugs. You're always in that type of negative, thought or a thought that it's not associated with something positive. Obviously, my work is positive. But you're spending every freaking wakeful hour thinking about negative things. Whereas with me, like, I'm always thinking about positive things, how to improve, how to work out the puzzle. Imagine being in a situation when not only does the puzzle doesn't concern you, but you want to, like, turn your head away from it. You want to avoid the puzzle because it's too freaking hard, man. Like, it's incredible, man. Really makes you feel blessed, man. Makes you feel blessed. You know, that 265 kilo deadlift, if that's the end of that, man, like, that's pretty good. I should be happy with that. You know, I should be happy with everything that I have in life and whatnot. So, you know, this nursing gig, man, like, I don't know, man. I don't think there would be Ivan of this form if it wasn't for my job, man. This philosophy, this outlook in life, it's that. It's the work, man. And I think a lot of people might be doing my work, same work, in the same department, and they might be processing this stuff differently, or they don't, you know, think deeply about this stuff. But I've always kind of found myself to be a deep thinker, and so when I'm in a room with a freaking paralyzed, intubated 30-something-year-old because of drugs, I don't just end the story there. Okay, call ICU. Oh, we got a 30-year-old, you know, overdose on what drug, blah, blah, blah. We're coming, you know. I'm thinking about, there's a story behind this, man. There's a whole bunch of question marks behind this story that we don't really know. We see the product, we see the result, but no baby gets born into this world. Like I've had 2 kids, man. Like, I've got 2 kids and I've had 2 babies, newborns. That is a blank canvas. Do you understand? Like, blank canvas. Between her birth and that tube yesterday, there must have been some wrong freaking colors being put onto that canvas to result in that. That's the environment, man. Like, I can't think, maybe there's situations where it's nature versus nurture. Maybe it's nature. And in some instances, like if there's, you know, genetic mental health conditions or something like that. But for the most part, man, I think a lot of these situations could be just avoided by loving, protective parents, man. Appreciate all of you guys. I'll catch you in the next one. I can't end the video like this. I have to say, peace out.